last night at midnight. So what is the House going to do? A member of the House of Representatives, Texas Congressman Jeb Hensarling, joins us right now from Washington, D.C. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to you.
All right, so the House is going to get that later today. We know you're open for business. Are you going to vote on it?
Well, we are open for business, but it would be nice to at least have the opportunity to read what the Senate has done. We passed our bill to prevent all tax increases on all Americans back in July, so the Senate's had months to look at that.
Right.
We passed our bill to keep the sequester savings, but to do it in a more smarter fashion back in September. The Senate's had months, the Democrat-controlled Senate's had months to look at that, and now they're expecting us to vote on something they passed hours ago without reading it. I don't think so, but so I would hope that we would take a look at it, but we have to study it, understand it. This cannot be a bum's rush dealing with something that's going to impact so many people.
Sure.
But what Republicans have tried to do is prevent tax increases on small businesses, on working families, and to get to the root of our debt crisis, which is that we have a spending-driven debt crisis promoted by the president. And regardless of what's in this deal, Steve, it doesn't take care of the spending-driven debt crisis that unfortunately could lead us down the road to being Greece one day. And I'm concerned, looking at the press reports of this deal in the Senate, is that it actually includes new spending.
Well,
so the president...
It does. And I know you have been on this program and you've talked about the importance of spending cuts, real meaningful spending cuts with the way we're, spending our nation's treasury right now. And you look at it, they are going to raise taxes $41 for every $1 that they cut. I know that just, too bad we don't have one of those blood pressure things hooked up on you. I'd like to see that number. But when the House does take this up eventually, I would imagine there are going to be some amendments tacked on, knowing John Boehner. If you got to get out a blue pencil and make some changes on this, what would you like to see included?
Well, Steve, the first thing is there should be zero new spending in this. I mean, under the president, in 4 years, he's amassed more national debt than in the previous 200. This is unsustainable. Tax revenues are about where they were 5 or 6 years ago, but spending under him has increased 20%. And that's why, before he became president, what used to be annual deficits are pretty now much morphing into monthly deficits under him. But the most important thing is, Steve, you can't get there with tax increases. You give the president every single job-crushing tax increase he's requested, it's about 2 to 3% of his spending agenda. It's about 15 to maybe 17% of the additional $5 to $6 trillion of additional debt. And so it's really a shell game. Ultimately, he says, no, we're going to tax the wealthy. And by the way, 0.3% of all Americans have $1 million incomes. Right. Tax them all you want. Ultimately, this is going to fall on working class people. It's going to harm jobs, and it does nothing to deal with our deficit. And so I'm not terribly impressed by what the Senate came up with, but I know my Senate Republican colleagues, they're operating with a gun on their head, and I understand that.
Absolutely. And Congressman, you're probably